Cool. What up, what up, what up? Welcome to the 76 Show and Tell. Today we're going over some Svelte stuff. Gonna do a quick little demo of what it's like to work in Svelte instead of the Reacts. And yeah, I got with me Hunter and Drew, who are some fellow Sveltors. Yeah, excited to jump in. Let's go for it. Okay, so goal for today is I made this website called Svelte Pilled. And we should use it and make a small Svelte app. So to do that, I think I probably should share my screen or something. Let's see, we got this layout here. Let's present some screens. Boom. Yeah, that's probably good. We'll make it bigger in a second. But that is kind of a weird size. How about we just go make a new workspace over here? All right, so if you want to follow along in what we're doing today, I made this website called Svelte Pilled. This is a work in progress, but it kind of tells you how to get started on making a Svelte app. The easiest way, in my opinion, is to just run this npm create vite latest, the name of your app. And that'll give you a couple options if you want to like, yeah, we'll run that and see that in a second. Other than that, on this site, it shows you general project structure, kind of what components look like, general templating. Then I have some work in progress. That stores is supposed to be stores. But yeah, I'll add state management to this someday. Well, cool. Why don't we just make a simple app? So to do that, let's just open up a fresh terminal here. And wait, how do I make it big? There we go. A big terminal?
Oh, you still got the music playing a little loud.
Oh, you think it's a little loud?
Oh, is it not on your end?
Well, I don't know how to mix it and like hear the good preview. Why don't we just cut it? People can play their own music. All right, fun intro, I guess, but let's take it off for working. What was it doing? Cool. So first thing, just like any app, you're gonna need a folder for it. So why don't we make one of those? I got this Git folder on my computer. I keep a lot of stuff in, so I don't just make another Megdir Svelte demo. Sounds good to me. All right, so in this folder, well, we actually could have generated that folder with this command, but let's just go into a folder so we're scoped to it here. We can go npm create vite at latest, then an app name here. Why don't we just call this Svelte for now? Could not determine executable to run. Oh, npm create. Oh, why?
Just
Yeah,
random question. Did you use Daisy UI for Svelte Pilled?
Knowing me, probably, but it's at least it at least looks like some Tailwind shadows.
It looks really good.
Yeah, I can send you the repo later. I don't know what's in here, honestly. I put this together on like a random sick weekend and then it just sits here. But it's kind of a cool quick start whenever I need a Svelte app. I just go to the domain, copy this.
That's cool.
But the other thing I kind of like with this and what I showed about this CLI is you can generate a lot of different things. So you can just generate a like vanilla app, a Svelte app, solid, whatever the heck. This is just using the vite create little CLI that they have. So once you run that example there, we're going to do Svelte, of course. We're not going to do SvelteKit today. Let's just do a Svelte app and some TypeScript. Keep things nice. So it says that it made it in a folder called Svelte for us. We can install it. We can run it. Let's just open up this folder in VS Code and see what it looks like here. Zoom in over here. Yeah, and then move that over there. So just like we thought, there's a single folder with Svelte. A bunch of stuff got exploded in here. It's not too bad, but we don't really need to understand everything in here today. Most of it's just kind of vite config, stuff like that. But the main part of the app is this index, because this is what gets served as your app in the end, basically. Is that big enough on the stream? I could probably check.
Maybe just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, let's go verify. Yeah, I'll do one step bigger. Okay. Yeah, so we'll stay at that size. Cool. So if you don't already know, how Vite works is a little bit different from Blunder's like rollup and stuff. While it is pretty rollup-esque, usually your entry point is an HTML file. So Svelte is a compiled language, but you point to the files to compile with the index HTML, and then they pass through Vite. We can kind of go through that flow in a second. But yeah, I'm trying to decide how deep I want to get into like how Svelte works, because I kind of just want to show you guys the markup for it today. So we'll just do that. No, it's a compiled language. You can just keep it at that. But what that essentially means is it can do a lot of cool stuff as it's building. Whereas in React, you're kind of always typing into the final product because everything you write is like just the JavaScript to run in the end. Whereas Svelte, the stuff you write gets turned into JavaScript. And when they do that conversion and that compilation step, they're able to see like what variables use what and kind of put signals on them. So like if you update one piece of state in one component and it's also in another component, it'll only update it in those two places and do a lot of cool optimizations like that. Versus as React, when you update something, it'll tear down the whole tree and rebuild it again of everything below the change. So Svelte is a lot faster for reasons like that. And there's also some cool things you can do with that compilation step. Like you could write Markdown right in a Svelte component. And since the Svelte component doesn't have to be JavaScript, it doesn't care. You can have your compilation step convert that Markdown to HTML and do fun stuff like that. But cool. So yeah, the main thing is here's our entry point. We're pointing to this main TS. So let's click into it. Unable to open. Must just be confused on paths because it is right here. Cool deal. Here's our source main. The only thing it has to do is bring in some CSS, bring in a Svelte tap, mount it. There's kind of a similar setup like this for how you like first, render a React app. You just got to mount it to the DOM at some place. Sometimes this will give a TypeScript error. So we'll hack. You can just do like or document body as a fallback. I usually just mount to the body, but in this case, looks like we're mounting to ID app. And then if we look in our HTML, we'll see ID app. So look, no HTML exists yet. It's all of the stuff we write is going to explode in this div, basically. Cool. So that's all set up. Now we could go to this component that's brought in. If you notice, this component that we import is a .svelte file, and that is a component. A component can have 3 different sections. It can have its script. This is where you can write just vanilla JavaScript, whatever the heck you want to do. You can also import Svelte components. You can even import JSX here if you really want to. Don't do that. And then you have your main tag here, which is an example of a template. So your template for the component is always whatever HTML you write out in the open space, like out in the white space. And then you have your style tag, just like HTML. Let me move these so they're together. I usually do something. I usually put style at the top. I usually go style script and then template. Doesn't really matter. But in here we can kind of read that this component has some styles. And this is a cool thing about Svelte is whatever you write in a style tag for that component gets scoped to that component. So when this gets compiled in that compilation step, all of these class names will turn into random IDs that map to the classes used in our template. So that something else in our app with the class logo will not be affected by this logo. We can have like a local logo. That's also kind of cool if you have like maybe a global, like say this was a button class or something. If I reference button here, this would still get all these styles of the global button class because it has the button class, but an additional one is kind of going to be like generated out of these styles too. So it would get both in that way. So you can kind of add additional styles to a global class one-off that way if you want. Most of the time with stuff like Tailwind, you don't find yourself writing too much custom CSS, but it's super cool that it's here. And that's a pain point that I have in React usually when you want just some one-off styles for one little area. This is very, very nice. For our script, that's probably pretty self-explanatory. And then honestly, this is probably pretty self-explanatory too. If you know any sort of other frameworks, usually they work like you import the component and then you use it on the page somewhere. And that's all that's happening here. I guess maybe one improvement you could see over something like JSX is this doesn't have to be valid JavaScript. This has to be valid, I guess, Svelte syntax, which is basically HTML-ish. But stuff like classes, we can use a normal class. If you ever want to insert JavaScript, it's these curlies. So you can add those curlies just like that, or you can have a string and just put some curlies in the middle, like mydomain.com/ and then it would insert this right here. So that's pretty nice. You don't have to do the man, I'm blanking on the name right now. Template literal, is that the right word? I forget. You know, the strings where it's like you use the backticks and stuff. That's usually the way you do complicated injection stuff for like paths or whatever in templates and something like JSX. And you don't have that here. Okay. I think we kind of just threw all the core pieces at you. We could write a little code now. And to do that, I'm going to delete this file so we can make our own and just talk through it as we're making it. I think today we should make some Magic Eden. Let's just try to copy some UI from them. That's usually fun. Hey, this is that weird collection that why don't they go to their homepage? Slow app, I guess. Okay, so why don't we try to make something just like some random layout where there's like some grid of stuff on the top and then maybe a couple sections. Basically, I want to show a couple component examples and then how to template over stuff, like conditionally show, loop over things. And I think that would be a pretty good start. And yeah, Drew and Hunter, feel free to chime in if you've like ever done something in Svelte to change your life, and I should include it. But I'm completely winging this. Let's also delete their lib folder here, and just strip down this template as much as we can. We'll take away their assets too. Let's even take away their app.css. How about the first thing we do is add Tailwind? That's usually like a couple seconds and pretty.
Yeah, you do Tailwind Daisy here.
Yeah, let's add Tailwind Daisy, and then we'll probably want that for making stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll make it app.svelte again. So this will be the component we work in. Let's put that here. And our CSS will need stuff there. Cool, Tailwind, Svelte. I don't even think you need the Svelte kit specific way of doing this. I think you just need like the post CSS. Yeah, all you really need is all this stuff. That's the important part. Let's go npm. I don't know if we installed this. No package. Oh, it's in the Svelte folder. Yeah, that's kind of weird. How about we just fix that? Let's grab everything in the Svelte folder and move it out of the Svelte folder. Nice. And then delete the Svelte folder. Boom. Now we can install. What? Oh, now I'm in files? What the? Git cd Svelte demo. Boom. Now we're cooking. And the things we need are these guys. So PNG boom. That should be all we need. Looks like we need to help out Vite a little bit and give it a way to pre-process post CSS. So we will add that pre-processor. Boom. What did I mess up there? Oh, this might be, this is in the Svelte config. I see. We have one of those. Mixed up. Ah, it's already got it. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into. I haven't explored this Svelte config in a while. I think this is just saying like use the Vite preprocessor to pre-process Svelte components, and what that means is, so remember in a Svelte component how they're I shouldn't have deleted it already, but you can have that style tag. The preprocessor will like convert that style tag from non-CSS things to CSS things, so that Svelte can compile it as CSS and the script tag and the template and stuff. So since we are adding post CSS to our app, we need to have that preprocessor to handle post CSS imports. The content gets added to the Tailwind config, and I think they have a command that generates you a Tailwind. Yeah, this one. So just run that. You'll get a fresh Tailwind config. And then I guess we just tell it to look out for Svelte files. Boom. Okay. And then in our here, these go into our app CSS. And then somewhere in our app, we need to bring in that. So I will go style. Well, actually, we could just import that in our main. Yeah. Boom. But I can show you another way to do it too. So this is probably the best way to do it. If you're going to import global styles, I like all that stuff in my entry point, and then you have this single file for all of your like global resources kind of. But what you could do is if you have like a top level component, we could go style, and then, well, this is actually going to be the like CSS type import now. So like that. And then I think you just add global on here. And remember before I said how anything in the style component gets scoped to the scoped to your template in this component. Global is what overrides that. So now anything here is going to be global to all components. It just gets added to the bundle as global stuff. So we should check if this actually works. Why don't we make a main tag and then add like an H1, and that's going to be enough of an example to see how, or just to see if Tailwind's working. So let's try a pnpm run dev. A boom. Ooh, we got some errors. Some files don't exist. That's because we got a lowercase. I don't like uppercasing file names. And this is definitely not working. I mean, I think. Let me try to just do this the other way in case I'm messing up that syntax. Import our styles here. Oh, it was app. Yeah. There, now it works. I just know because I saw the font change and I know Tailwind. I'll make this bigger in a second. It's just a really small font.
It looked like it was working before. It looked like the font changed a little bit there.
I don't think so. It was like, let me see, because I want to see if I'm right here.
Yeah.
Weird. It made it smaller, but the font didn't apply.
Oh.
It's still like, it's like half applying. I don't know. Let's not fight it. I'm just gonna import it in our entry point because that worked. Cool. Now that we got Tailwind, we have unlimited classes forever, and we can write our div classes off the screen and into eternity and into other apps because Tailwind's great like that. Just kidding. We're gonna use Daisy UI. Daisy UI is a lot of cool Tailwind components made for you. There's no JavaScript here. You can just be like, oh, I want some steps or something like this. That's cool. Well, you just click on the HTML and use it. Don't gotta import nothing. So let's set this up. All you gotta do is install Daisy UI latest. So let's start there. Daisy UI latest. Actually, that could be a dev dependency. So don't listen to me. Add a D there. But then once you have Tailwind somewhere, we can add it to our Tailwind config. Once you have Daisy, once you have Daisy, you can add it to your Tailwind config in plugins. Boom. Guess we gotta leave plugins. Boom. And that should be good. And we can test that because I think they add like a dark theme by default. So we'll know. Look at that. We are daisying. Real quick thing. Let's just add a light theme for today just so that we could see a little difference. You can add any of their they have a bunch of baked in themes here. You can also add your own very easily. But if you make your own or you want to use one of theirs, the way you do that is you go to the index, you go to the top of your HTML and go data theme, and then you point to one of the names of the theme. So light, for example, light works because it's baked in. Ooh, let's go cyberpunk. That's wild. Nah, that's gonna hurt my eyes by today. What's something fun? Let's go synthwave. That's calm enough but cool enough. Synthwave. Hello. I wonder if you have to include it in their themes list. Maybe it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, I think you have to
Okay.
include it. Yeah,
It's like not all of theirs are included, but just maybe just light and dark are included.
I think so.
So you add another property to your tailwind if you want to customize it. Oh, while we're doing this, let me just flash something cool for you guys. Is the theme generator? Where's the theme generator? I thought it'd be in themes. What? Maybe it's config.
I think
No.
it's in the theme. I thought it was like where you pick themes, you could like generate them there.
I thought it was 2. What the heck?
It did just recently update the docs too, so I wonder if they moved it.
Utilities? Wait, what? Customize components, use. Oh, we got a control K. Generator. There we go. It's somewhere. I don't know what chapter I'm in right now, but we found it. So if you look up their theme generator, it's really easy to customize your own, and they show you cool examples on the left here of like what those do. So if you want to make your own, you could just copy this and add it to the Daisy config, and then you would reference my theme in your HTML. Pretty dang easy. Today we're going to use a built-in one. Synthwave. Let's also make this a little smaller. And did we get it? Yeah, we got it. Cool.
There we go.
We are cooking. So now that we got some tailwind here, let's make this like a min height screen. And then let's just put a section for like our header. So we got a big fat something in it. And we could just go like, we could flex it, item center it, justify center it. Boom. This didn't work. It's interesting. And height. I thought that was a real thing, and I thought, yeah, well, it works there. Okay. Guess we only really want it on our section too. But let's go actually min height. I usually do like maybe like an 80 VH or like a 70-ish or something. So it's like you get enough of a header, but it's not quite taking over the whole screen. Svelte demo. And this is our H1, so let's add a bunch of classes to it to make it stand out a little more. How about font bold? Text XL. Go 8XL. That's a lot. Let's go 5. Boom. Well, guys, this was a fun lesson. That's how you use Svelte. Just kidding. We haven't really gotten too much Svelte stuff yet. But I think something to highlight here of how many non-framework specific things we just did to get this far. So far, this feels like just vanilla HTML and CSS, basically. But we're able to make a whole app with a framework. And when I make changes, this is live reloading. So there's all the benefits of using something like React, but we're sticking in vanilla land and just kind of sticking to the basics. The cool thing about what's that, like Web3 schools? I don't think Web3 or 3 is the wrong thing.
I think it's W3.
W3, yeah. Like this is my favorite Svelte docs because you don't need a bunch of magic. You just go read JavaScript methods and or HTML attributes, how they're supposed to be implemented, and Svelte adheres to all of those just core specs, and that's really cool. Usually in React, you'll find a cool library you want to use, and then you got to go find the React flavor of it. And then when you're going to implement it, you got to probably wrap it in a hook so that you can use it, something like that. We don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's a major plus. Yeah.
Yeah, major plus. I love using just, the vanilla versions of stuff. Cool. So we got this section. Maybe one quick thing is above our, here's another plus. You can have more than one element at the root. What? No way. Why can't I type? What is happening? But normally in React, you have to return like a root element, and everything feels like it has to be a tree kind of. But Svelte feels a lot more like one-off HTML snippets that are just kind of little templates, whatever you need them to be. It's like if we want to make a nav next to this main, we just make a nav, and it just works. This one will be, let's go top 0, and then we'll make it sticky. Why don't we go like BG black, but then we can go BG opacity, like 50. And we'll probably want some like padding on here, like py3 demo. Let's put this in like an h2 or something. I don't know. Something. Look at that. Got a little nav. We could even make this opacity like less. It's probably fine. And let's go padding all around. Call this the nav. Cool. We probably don't need too many buttons here, but if we wanted one, Daisy has some nice buttons. My button. One there. And then I think if you had the primary class, you'll get some, maybe not primary, secondary. Maybe it's button primary. There we go. And then you can flex between these. And look at that. We got a pretty sexy nav already. Okay, but again, all we've written is a bunch of classes and HTML. We haven't done too many Svelte things. So let's get into that now. But this was a cool intro to how to set up a project, how to use some Daisy. Let's see how we can add some JavaScript to this stuff. So my goal was to make one of those header sections of like some cards like this. Let's not make it a carousel, but let's see if we could just just make some cards. How about we start by making a component? It's probably always a good step. I should I'll pop over here every once in a while if anyone has any chats or anything. I am not watching anything while I'm working, just so you know. So if you have questions, just yell at me somehow. But what we're doing, making a component. So let's do a new folder, components. And then why don't we do something called, so we could make a super generic card. Let's do that. This feels like a little bit overkill for what we're going to add to it, but I think it's a good example of just how components could work. So we'll want to make a card which will just be like a div. How about our cards are just a div with rounded edges? It has a light border, and you can pass in, how about not this like part that slides up, but you could just pass in like a title and a subtitle, and that'll be our card component. So we are going to need a div, and let's go rounded on the edges. Let's just add a border to it. I don't know what color that's going to be. We'll tweak that later. It also needs, let's have it take a background image too as a prop. So let's set up those props. So to set up props, how Svelte works is, before I write anything here, let's import our app so we can visually see that connection. Import card from components card. Boom. So let's put our card on the page in a new section. Oops. Boom. Copilot's trying to be helpful. We're not going to let it. Did I spell something wrong? Components. What did I do here? Oh, lowercase? I probably didn't uppercase it. I bet that was Copilot or something. Yeah, I never uppercase my files. I think it's weird, but don't not because I don't. I'm just weird. But we got this card here, and that's on the page, so we should see it in theory. It's somewhere. I think it's just clear. Oh, there it is. I didn't save. And all we're seeing is a border, super tight border. I'm going to go to our app and make our header a little bit shorter. Let's just say like a 40 VH. Makes it a little nicer. And then we can see our card section here. But for this card, it's going to need a little more help here. I think we're going to need to use the Tailwind aspect ratio class because we want to get something like this. So we could start at the aspect square. That's one place to start. And then you'll get this card that is a perfect square. But that's really big. And also, this isn't quite a square. This is maybe like 2-to-1 or something. Maybe not quite that, but I think you can do. We might have to look at the docs, but I think you can do like this. Oh yeah, did that make it taller? Does this make it shorter? Yeah. Very cool. So we just need like the inverse of like 3-1, or like 1-3. That's probably about what we want. They're just really big, so we can't tell right now. We'll test that in a sec. Yeah, there's just so much I want to show. I'm all over the place, but let's go back to the props problem. So we're importing our card here. We're using it on the page. We probably want to like send some props down to it. Well, you just send HTML attributes. Let's take whatever. I wonder what this picture is that Copilot gave us. I guess we're about to see. Oh, it's from the placeholder website. Cool. And unlike React, these don't get turned into a props object. They are individual variables that get passed in. So picture them like lets, basically, because they can change. If the top level passes something down, it's going to change in the child component. And how to access those is I'll leave this one up here, and if we have enough room, I'll do this. Let's just close our files. In our script tag here, what we want to do is instead of the parent component passing, like handing down an object, Svelte works by this card component has a few variables that it exposes to the outside world for other things to change if they want to. Because this state can be changed by the component too and updated just like normal lets. It's the only difference is they have this export which exposes them to the outside world, and that's what we're seeing over here. And that's also why this has red lines, because it's saying these properties aren't real things. But once I save this file, TypeScript is going to figure itself out. Notice, oh, these things are exported. You're allowed to pass in these things. All is good. And if you want to use these, that is just kind of easy peasy. We can just make a div, and then you'll just have your curlies and put it in there. So cool. We got card title. So now that we are passing down props, we kind of got a rough rounded card. We've learned kind of all the core pieces here. Let's loop over some cards and then make them look like this. How about we do like 4 of them or whatever will fit? I don't know how lazy I want to be with looping over, but how about we just do this? Const. Well, let's just do stuff. Oh, that's cool. Let's just use some
Yeah,
cool
that's cool.
pilot. Then I don't have to
Yeah.
type. Let's go. All right. Are you going to watch it make me a 4th one? Come on. Oh.
No, you got to start up at the yeah. No,
Here?
comma. Yeah, no comma. Yeah, no drop down.
That's what I did.
Aw, boo.
Yeah, why is it giving up now? There we
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Okay. Yeah, so we got 4 cards. And notice how I define this state. I didn't have to import use state, didn't have to wrap this in some hook just to have a variable. Nah, we just make the variable, dude. It's just too easy. So now that we have our state here as cards, which is a normal const, which is just a JavaScript thing. There's nothing Svelte really happening yet, kind of. We can loop over these. So let's go for stop it. I don't want this to do.
Yeah.
I want to teach
Doing
it
too much.
but we'll let it go. It's doing it anyway. But it's just an each loop. You use these hashtags to call out. I forget what Svelte calls these. There's a word for these, but there's just a couple you can use, like if statements, eaches. There's a few more. You can even do like await statements right in here. Like I think there's a hashtag await. You can point it to a promise, and then like it'll render the block inside once the promise was successful. But today we're just using the each one. I think each and if are what you use 90% of the time. So we're looping over these cards, and then you can see here we're going card title, card description, card name. Thanks, Copilot. But that maps to our state that was right here. We can even go a little farther and make this shorter. Svelte has this thing where you can do spread props. I didn't want to show you this right away because you go card, it'll spread in all the properties as props. So that's essentially the same thing because it'll define all these separately. I didn't want to show this initially because this kind of looks like you're passing in an object with some stuff on it. It's not really what's happening under the hood. It's you're passing in some properties and then they get mapped to these exported variables. But that's just one of the cool things you can do when you have a compiler is you can pass in one thing and Svelte handles it barely differently to make your life easier. There's a couple cases like that. You just kind of learn how Svelte works and usually you're thankful for it. There's a couple of things like you kind of work around, but I don't think there's too much weird. Maybe the biggest thing to know about how Svelte re-renders stuff is things are only ever re-rendered on assignment. So maybe if I had another function here, like const add card, and then I did like cards dot push a new card. When I run this, this card will get pushed to the data up here, but this each loop is not going to rerun. So in React land, what would happen is this would probably be like a use state with a dependency of, well, probably wouldn't even need dependency or anything, but it would just be there's some card state, and then React would notice, oh, that's changed, so then it re-renders the template with it. Svelte doesn't do that kind of checking. It's more checking if the thing that the template relies on has been changed. It will only ever update this small little part of the template. And if you just change an object or an array, as far as Svelte's concerned, that's the same object and array, so nothing really happened. If you want to update, you can go cards equals something like, yeah, like cards and then spread them in. So technically this is an assignment and that will trigger it, but you're kind of making a new variable in memory for no reason. Like you're declaring a new array here. Doesn't really need to be. You kind of could just reference the old one. So even though it's a little uglier, if you want to just kind of keep your same objects and stay nice and svelte, you can just kind of do this hack of like cards equal cards. So the data is not going to change in the card. This is basically just a symbol or a signal to Svelte, making it think that you changed your card array to make it reload. It's pretty rare that you run into that because usually you have different state patterns, but I just wanted to call that out because that is probably the weirdest thing in Svelte, and that gets solved in the next Svelte, which is coming out very soon. Svelte 5. We'll do another demo on that when it happens. This is just giving me a red line because this is a const. We can make this a let, even though we're going to kind of treat it like a const. And then, yeah, cards equal cards. Let's leave this here because let's add a add card button later. That'll be kind of fun. But for our cards, we're going each cards. I bet the page is actually looping over them. It's just doing them off the screen. Or it is not. Or no, it is. They're just really big.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's put them in a grid, and then we can kind of manage like this size a little bit. We don't have to do a grid. We could just do flex. Let's just do flex and a flex wrap. You could do the same in grid, but we don't really need it today. So flex and then flex wrap, and then let's do like a grid or like a gap, like 3. Get a little spacing in between them. I'm trying to think of a way to give them a nice height. I think we would just let's let the card component be its own size because that makes it more flexible. We could wrap the card component in something that's like class max height something. How about just like 5 rem? Boom, and we kind of get that look going on there. Thanks. What's 10 look like? Or like 7. Let's do like a little taller. Wait, I think it's broken now. I'm actually surprised that's not. Maybe this isn't like full screen or something. Let's inspect this. I messed something up. All right, we got this flex. And then we're looping over cards. Oh, this needs to be for each card. That's what's weird. Boom.
There we go.
Cool deal. I think we could change our aspect ratio a little bit better. And then after we do that, let's style these cards a little better, make one more section, and then call it good, because I think that'll be most of the parts. For the next section, we'll make a store to store the state in. And then I think that'll be like all the key parts in Svelte. if you know how to make a template like this, and you know how to make some state like this, and you know how to loop over it like this, I think that's 98% of web apps. You got it. The only other thing, we'll do it later, but you can do if statements. You can do if cards.length is less than 10. I don't know what Copilot just did for us. Oh, that's kind of cool. We can
Yeah.
add a card if the length is less than 10. Let's leave it. Look at this. Look at us adding cards. How cool is that? Let's clean them up slightly. It was in our card class that we added the aspect ratio. So let's just try this. This is kind of funny that it gets.
Yeah, card 10 is just super large.
I wonder if these probably aren't reaching their max height. They're just doing a width because of their title. This one is actually hitting the max height maybe, or just gets bigger because of the title. But we could solve that by, I think if we just force the cards to be like, let's try height full. Maybe that won't do it. I'm trying to think of, I want to force them to be as tall as they possibly can. And then they just hit that max. But that might not
Does height
happen.
fit work?
Height fit? I don't use that. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the issue here too. Maybe we just give them more of a width. Like widthful? No, because they're gonna be relative to like the flex container. What's the grow one? I think we can grow them. Grow one. Grow. Yeah.
Oh, and
It's
then you could do flex grow too, I think, but
flex
I
grow.
think that's something entirely different.
Because now they're doing the growing, but they're just taking up the empty space. Okay. How about we just be super lazy and go like, instead of a max height, why don't we just say a min width? Kind of another way to do this. Or we could just say like a width. I mean, that's kind of janky though for being responsive, but it's probably kind of fine for this demo. Let's just give it a width. Okay, everybody, we're giving a hard-coded width. Probably don't do that. But we're learning Svelte today, not CSS. Let's try like B4. That's nicer.
Yeah.
And this add card button is just kind of chilling there. Let's move this out of our like flex loop. And how about we put that up top? Boom. Hey, it's not perfect. It's fine though. I'm gonna add a little padding on our main so we can just have some nice cushions around the edges. Cool deal. All right, we're adding state to our app, and we can only add 10 cards, and then that goes away. So that's a cool example of looping over stuff and conditionals. Let's just use the props we passed into these, and that actually might be good for today's lesson. I think this would be a good example to toss out there into the interwebs. So sprucing up our card a little bit, we can explore some more Svelte things. Like what should we do here? How about we can go style, background, image. Oh, well, that's a weird way of doing that, Copilot. What the heck?
Yeah.
I was trying to be too React. We can. That would be the more Svelte way of doing it. Oh, but we don't need this. We just need the curlies around the image because that's the only thing that changes. Okay. Look at that. They're all getting their background picture. Nice. We'll probably just want to add some stuff like BG cover, BG center. Nice. And then for our title section, I think we could probably flex this and like flex call it, justify end. So then we got this div chilling at the bottom of our card there. Yeah, this is down here. And that could take in our title and our description. How about our title like an H3? Description could just be like a p tag. Nice. For this, so text XS, a little smaller. Oh, that's XS. I'm just super zoomed in then. So it's probably the issue is more this one's small. I bet if you viewed this at like normal zoom, this would be an odd sight. Oh, it's not too bad. But we're deving at 200. I think our little demo section at the bottom, or like the details, could have kind of the same thing as our nav. So let's go like BG black and then BG opacity, like 40 or 30, just enough to give it a little thing. Nice. Q3, it's a lot. How about 1? Nice. Title, font, semi bold. Nice. Those are some nice cards, guys. I think one thing we could fix though is
That padding on the right side, is that padding?
padding on the right side. What are you
Or
saying?
maybe it's just how my screen is showing the card. Looks like there's like some padding on the right side, like I don't know where the opacity is on the bottom. Maybe I'm tripping. Yeah, it might just be how I'm looking at it on the screen, because when you adjusted it, it kind of just adjusted it.
Oh, maybe you're tripping. I don't know. One thing I see that's a problem is like this box is spilling out of our this. So let's fix our that. We can just go, I think, overflow. Hidden. Boom. Got some roundy cards, a little border. Let's go to like pixels. Guess I was looking at space videos. And we could just copy some random pictures and let's put them in. So over this first one can be like that picture. That's fun. Let's this guy looks like he's having a good time. Boom. Tasty. This is what Copilot really should do for you, is like just go on Unsplash, find you some dummy pictures or something. Oh, it's a video. Let's go for a waterfall. All right. Wow, this is gorgeous. And then I think, oh, and then if we make new ones, we'll just put the waterfall. Look at that. Okay, so that is some nice looking cards. Some. Oh, you know what we should do? We should show off some Svelte animations. That's something nice about Svelte. So if we look up Svelte transitions, they have a bunch of baked in stuff for doing simple like fly-ins and fades and things like that. Here's all of them: fade, blur, fly, slide. But how you use them is you can import like fly from Svelte transition, and then on the thing you want to fly, you go on this div, and you would go like fly. Actually, you do transition, fly,
Okay.
and then we give it curlies because we want to pass it a value, and the value we want to pass it is an object. So it looks a little weird because double curlies, but that's why that's there. And then you say on what axis and how much you want it to fly, and the duration. And then here's the other kind of cool. Well, actually, let me just show you this first, and then I'll show you how to make it cooler. This probably isn't going to fly because the only way animations work is if something wasn't there before and then you toggle it to come in later. So we could, why don't we make like a getting started button that just shows this section? That would be kind of a cheat code, but it would be ugly UI. I think what I would probably do, yeah, ignore me. Let's do it how I would probably do it. Let's not show bad things. I'm going to import on mount from Svelte. If you are familiar with something like the use effect in React, where you have to like just give it an empty one of those, this is the same thing. This is just a function that'll run one time on component mount. And that is also something to really highlight about Svelte, is every component only ever renders one time. Whereas if you're using something like React and you put a console log out here in the wild, when we're changing stuff, this would just go crazy, and you like see your console spammed with it because React is just like re-rendering as fast as it can for no reason all the time. But this, like, we see it one time. I refresh the app, you'll see it one time. Not saying there aren't cases like that in React, but in React you do get a lot of re-renders. But now look, when we add cards, they nicely fly in because of that animation we added. We'll do it for the initial ones in a sec too. But this only ran one time. The only thing Svelte is changing is this specific piece of state because that's the only thing that changed. And that's something I want to keep coming back to because it changes how you develop and make things more efficient. But cool. So we brought in this on mount, and that's why I explained all that. On mount is just there's a function you just pass function to, and then it runs this function whenever the DOM's ready and the component's all ready. You can totally do code out here if there's just like maybe some client you want to set up or something like that, like const my thing. It's just whatever is in here is going to be ran as early as possible, not when the component's ready. So just keep that in mind. There's kind of like two ways to run stuff, but this is totally a fine place to set up data. Like we have our state and stuff. It's just, I don't want, what I was planning to do is having like a let show cards or something like that. And then on mount, we go show cards equals true. So this is a flag that instantly gets flipped. But the reason I did that is because now I can wrap this section in show cards, and that will trigger the animation to go because this section wasn't here, then the section was here, and wait, shouldn't that have worked? Show cards, no, show cards true. Well, that's awkward. I've definitely done that 100 times. What if we had a timeout? That would be an odd. Yeah, I don't think it's a timing issue. I don't know. Anyway, that's a fail. Let me see if it's not something easy. Show cards. This is not going to be shown initially, and we can prove that by commenting this out. But then when they come in, it's almost like the new ones don't get this stuff. But yeah, interesting.
It usually works on mount.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I just did something silly because usually this is how I would add these. Unless this is running too early and it's like before the images actually show up and stuff. I don't think so.
Yeah, the duration seems fine.
Yeah, and like you definitely see them when you wait, show timeout. What am I doing? Set timeout. And you definitely see them when you add a new one. Let's try this. Let's try to show them after like 5 seconds. Come on. There they are. Ah, it's still broken. Okay, anyway. I guess we are not getting that to work. I'll fix it later and get back to you guys. I'm stumped though. I don't want to waste time on it, but we can prove that point other ways. So instead of doing on mount, normally if you want to have setup stuff, you do it on mount. Like example is, I don't know, fetch the user profile once the page is ready, stuff like that. It's just our animation case here, I guess. Had some caveat that I don't know about. But what we can do is on these cards, let's add fewer default cards and then we can just add cards. How about we do const source cards. I'm going to do this, add random card. And then let's see if Copilot can save us here. Const pick random item from array. Love you, Copilot. And then whenever we add a random card, we can go cards push, pick random item from array, source cards, cards equal cards. Let cards. We don't have cards yet, but now that's just an empty array. Cool. Add cards doesn't exist because we renamed it. So where is the add cards button? Boom. And now look at all these random cards flying. That's pretty fun. Cool. Alrighty. So that's a fun demo. What else should I do? We could just scroll Svelte real quick. Let me know if there's anything else. Maybe I could do a quick store. Global
I
state's
think
usually pretty
stores-
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. But really, like, to learn all of Svelte, it's not big. Like, it's this really. You got your stores. Yeah, the animate and the actions. We looked at that. The actions are kind of cool. It's definitely like a little bit more of an advanced thing, but it's for you can essentially make an action, which is just a function, and then you add them like this. So use and then your function name. And what this does is it just kind of attaches some JavaScript you have to that element, but it's not necessarily a component. It's just like maybe you have some buttons or some divs and you want all of them to like have a certain listener or something like that. I don't know what they were doing in their example here, but yeah, that's a pretty cool abstraction too, because sometimes your functionality doesn't need to be a full component with like styles and a template and a script. Your component is really just like some JavaScript you want to componentize, but still use on components. That's where actions are pretty sweet. But the basic markup, we went over that. We could look at input fields really quick, maybe input fields and stores. How about we make something new where you add elements to a store via an input field. Yeah, and I think that would probably touch most things. Okay, cool. One intro to that, what we're about to do is, let me show you how to bind values to stuff in the template. So say I have something like this. Let's add back that show cards value we used to have. So show cards true. Let's just leave that true. And then for our app down here, let's add this back. So if show cards, then if. Okay. Let's move that into here. So we would expect our cards to be shown as we add them. Yes. Cool deal. Let's actually put our button instead of show cards too. Yes, we expect everything to be shown. Okay, and then up here, in another div, I'm going to put an input. So let's do an input, and then let's do a type checkbox. So this should just be a checkbox kind of chilling here. And then can you do a placeholder on inputs? Or do you have to do a label? I think you have to do a label. So in that case, I'll just do, oh, that works fine. Cool. Just do an ID on this guy. Show cards. Okay. What I'm trying to show with this is if you have something like an input where you need state that the user gave you to map to a variable somewhere, in React, you would add a on change event here. And then every time this changes, you would assign the event.target.value back to some use state that you made. We're not going to do that. We're just going to make a normal let show cards equals true. And then down here for our checkbox, which I already lost, here we go. We can just go bind value, because that's the thing on this input we want to bind is its value. We're going to bind its value to show cards. Now this input will always reflect the value of show cards. And if this input is ever changed, it will change show cards. We can show that here. Well, oh no, checked, because we're in a checkbox. There we go. So you gotta make sure you bind to the thing that you actually want to bind to. So like in input fields, it'd be value. Checkbox, we got checked state. But Yeah, so that's showing and hiding the cards, just like that, changing the checkbox. And as we're doing that, we see a little bit of a layout shift here with this scroll bar coming back, but this whole part of the component did not re-render or change to show all of this. Again, it's only changing just a little tiny bit. Even this checkbox didn't move. Even though its value changed, this checkbox just stayed where it was and the stuff goes down there. Pretty cool. Yeah, okay. So that's binding state one way. I guess I could show you, you can also, or that's two ways. You can also bind it one way. Like you could just have checked flowing down into the input field so it reflects the value, but it's not going to change it when you change it. It still has its own state. So that's nice for like a default value, but then you can bind on top of there maybe. Usually you'll probably just bind to it like that. But cool, we got that showing and hiding. Next, why don't we make another section just above our cards here? Section, and then let's have div and then the input field, and then let's do a type text and bind value to be new. How about new user? And we just need that. Yeah, we just need to go make some state for a new user. Let new user. And how about once they create a user from right here, we'll submit it to global state. Right now, we are adding random cards to our card state, but that's only local to this component. Like if something else wanted to loop over our cards, then we'd have to like go prop drill and all that kind of stuff. But I'll show you global variables, which are called stores, and that makes all this easier. So we got this input type. I'm going to go class equals input. I think you go like text input bordered outlined. I might have to consult the Daisy docs.
I think it's bordered.
Input bordered.
Yo.
Input. There you go. You just do input, I guess. And then maybe you do input text. I feel like there's an input text somewhere on there. I don't know. But then we'll do placeholder equals name. Cool. And then right here, let's say, how about create user? Oops. Boom. And then our section, let's just add some space here. Like my5. Okay. So the goal here is to, I'm going to flex this input field and then a button. And this will be like add. Sweet. Let's add a little gap here. And then down below it, let's have let's just have a list of like users. How about we just make like a bulleted list, something just crazy easy. So like a UL, and then we can each over it, each. How about I just make a fake array for a second? Look at that. We're looping over the users that are made. And then if we want to make this add button work, we go on click equals add user. Then on this one, I wish there was some shortcut for like stacking attributes because I do this too often. There's got to be a better way. It's probably just use Vim or something, but anyway, this in theory should be binding to this value. When we hit this, it should run an add user function. So let's add that real quick. Boom. And I guess we should probably just for 1 second, let's go make this some real state and call it users. We'll move it to be global in a second. Let users. Sweet. Okay, so those are all the default users. When you want to add a user, we are going to want essentially to do that, and then users equal users. What's happening here is on user add, we take the value from the checkbox, which is this, we push it to the array, we set the checkbox back to empty because they added their new user, and then we user.users, which should update the template and show it. Before we start clicking that button, let me just show you how quick and just nice the Svelte bindings are for stuff like inputs. They manage really fast inputs really well. There's a cool video called Rethinking Reactivity that you should watch, and he does a cool demo on how well that works and how like other frameworks will bog down when spamming so many updates at once. But something like this, we bind right to the new users. And I was going to not show user length, but let's just show new user here. And yeah, look at that. It's just because this is here. And that is updating as lightning fast as we are typing. Oh, I keep hitting that. Okay, so that's good. We know that this is assigning back to that value. I can move that away. When we type a new value now, we should be able to add it. Boom, look at that. It popped up there. So this is super cool, but what if our cards wanted to be able to like, I don't know, show a user or something? So how about we do this? When our cards are looping over stuff, we passing in all this stuff of the card. How about a card can take another property, which is like user, and that we'll pick a random item from the array, and then pick a random user and pass it in there. So then what we could do with that is on our card, how about after the where would be a good place on a card? How about just after the title? We just or I don't know. I don't know. We'll just add another thing down here. We'll just say user. We're gonna have to update another prop or add another prop. Export let user. Doesn't have to equal anything to start. And then right here we can go user. Bada boom. So these are all saying a random user, just like we predicted. So that's cool. But for all this to work, it's all relying on this app.svelte component we made. And everything's going to kind of become this, I guess, house of cards from here in a way where like all your state would have to be passed down. It would have to wrap everything. We don't really have to think that way in Svelte, where if you're working in something like, it's not even just React, but there's a lot of shapes where you kind of get stuck building this tower, I've found. But in Svelte, we can really separate stuff more. Like we can just have a template here. We can go make some state here. Stuff can kind of stream from that state, make other components here. It's super organized and cool. So let's go make that. Essentially what we need to make is a store. And to make a store, we need to put it in another file. Let's keep things super self-explanatory. So let's go stores. And then we'll have users.ts. Okay, and what a store looks like, I don't know. The name sounded like kind of daunting when I first started developing. Literally one import. So this is your entire store. We want to make a user one. Users, or the default value is just, actually the value of this store is going to be an array. And you can type these too. So let's say like this will be string. It's going to be an array of strings. Sweet. So essentially what we did here is because we defined some state with a writable, Svelte sets up a signal for that, and it looks for anything in the app that imports it. And when it updates in one place, it only updates the places throughout your app that used it, and only in those places. So if we want to use this, we could just import it into here as users, and we can use it as just a normal variable, like essentially the way we're doing it before. The only difference is that Svelte has this symbol, which is the $sign. And I'm going to have to add that to a couple places. And I'll explain in a second. What's this other red down here? Oh, yeah. Okay. So the reason we have to add the $sign Okay. So if we were to log this value, it's going to be essentially an instance of a store where a property on it is the value, but it has a couple other methods. The other methods are like you can go users dot set subscribe update. So that's really it. If you wanted to do subscribe, the value looks something like this. User dot subscribe, and then you get this callback that runs whenever that stuff happens. Um, and then, or you can also just do like users dot set, and then we could set a value. These are very, I guess, JavaScript heavy ways of managing a store. Svelte offers a really cool abstraction for managing your state, which is the $sign. And the $sign essentially means look at this store, subscribe to it, get the value, return the value. And if you do something like, I didn't explain this, but I should have. So if you do something like this $sign colon, that's another thing in Svelte. It's a reactive statement. It means run this line of code whenever anything in it changes. So this is a nice little debugging tip here. But if we look here and I log $sign users, that is actually an array. It's an empty array as expected. But if I just log users, look, this is it's a whole like store object with stuff in it. So if you ever want to quickly access the value in a store, you can just add $sign. Likewise, if you ever want to update a store, Svelte kind of has the inverse, just as cool. If Svelte detects that you're trying to like set a store, it'll essentially use the set method and set the store, like subscribe, set it, return the new value. The same way. What this lets you do is interact with global state stores, which are like subscribable, settable, importable, like shareable things, but you can treat them just as normal variables. You don't have to adhere to some hooks logic or like certain patterns. In your Svelte components, you can treat this just like a normal variable. It's pretty awesome. So this should honestly already be like working, I think. Yeah, I didn't even really wire anything up. All we did is make that other file and it just works. That's because we got it working vanilla JavaScript first. Once we wanted to add sprinkle in a little bit of Svelte and make it global state, that was just cake. All we did is make it a writable. And that's another cool thing about Svelte too, is I find myself, instead of buying into like big boilerplate and abstractions right off the bat just so I can put a div on the page, start as vanilla as possible and add on complexity as you need it. Because most of the time you're just writing normal JavaScript and HTML. It's pretty cool. You could even, this is just kind of a bonus, but if we go back to our user store, what if I export another one, which is the new user value? So this one could just be a string. And with what we know, we have this new user here, but we could just bind our input right to the store. Why not? So we have this bind new user here. Since we turned it into a store, we'll just make it a $sign. Maybe that doesn't work right here.
No, you just got to import it.
Okay. I think you can $sign there.
You can $sign there. You just got to import it.
Okay. What is it when you can't $sign? Oh, that's if you're like 2 levels deep in a function, I think.
Oh,
That's
wait. Where are you? Or you're not in a
I'm in a Svelte
logic
file.
block, are you? Below. That was
I think it's working now.
Yeah, you're fine.
I think the only time you can't $sign is in like TypeScript files, or if I made like another function in here. I think I couldn't. Console log. I just want to test that. Users. Yeah, maybe it still works. I don't know.
I think it's just like TypeScript files, really. That's like really in basically like anything.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing too, is you try to like move some state abstraction into a TypeScript file, but it uses the Svelte syntax, so you can't quite. But those issues are what Svelte 5 is solving, and it's really cool. They're adding a new thing where you can, you don't even have to import it. If it's just used anywhere in your app, you can be like const value equals $state. And the compiler will just find all these and basically turn them into writables, kind of. So no more importing, no more anything. Just whether you're TypeScript, whether you're in Svelte, you just make some state, and it's shareable. Actually, I might have. I wonder if you still even have stores in Svelte 5, because maybe it doesn't make a global like writable. I don't know what it does. It at least replaces the let pattern. But I need to go play Svelte 5 more. All right. Well, honestly, I think we could wrap this up. I've touched on a lot. I'll deploy this and share the link in the video description. If anyone wants to poke around on this repo.
A good amount of fundamentals in like one episode.
That's pretty good fundamentals. I mean, we set up the boilerplate. We added Tailwind, Daisy. We're doing about everything. If you wanted to fetch data or whatever, I mean, that's just normal JavaScript patterns. You'd fetch it in a function, assign it to a store or a let. Let me scroll this, make sure we didn't miss anything big, but I really don't think so.
No.
Yeah, there's on click. You can dispatch events up, and then you can have other things besides on click. You could be like on my custom event. So that's cool for two-way communication. If you want to insert HTML directly, it's pretty dangerous, but if you're safe with it and you know it's sanitized and good, maybe you have like some markdown, you convert it to HTML. They got that. Debug, honestly, I've never even used this, but you can. Yeah, let's pull it. Don't need to keep people here forever. But thanks for listening. That's Svelte.
It's Svelte.
That's Svelte. Pretty Svelte. Svelte. Maybe next time we could follow up with this template and add what exists of a wallet adapter and show some Solana stuff. But I think this was a good start.
Yeah, really good start on fundamentals for sure. I think like moving over from React, I think you get, I don't know if there's what's that one website that you showed me? It was like the component switch between them. It was like, oh man,
component switch.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was like almost, that might have been the name of it, but it was like a component. It was like basically just showing you like the differences of like state and stuff between like SvelteKit and Next and React and all that stuff in Vue. You can kind of like just like, oh, component party. I think that's what it was called.
Component party.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, I've been here.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, this is a cool thing. I'll share this in the chat too. But yeah, why don't we can just scroll this for an outro real quick.
Yeah, that was always really interesting when I was doing it.
Yeah. So like for simple state, you don't have to wrap it in like hooks and stuff just to use it. I guess that's kind of a hook, use state hook. We just make a variable. Svelte does this part when it compiles. And then what's this one? Alex, oh, that's reassigning. If you want to reassign, you just do it. You don't need to do a method with it. If you're using a store, you might still need to do like store.set. But then again, if you're using the $, you can just set it equals. Computed states. We didn't get into that today, but I think you'll figure it out as you get there. Basically, you can have $:, and you can have a just some variable or assignment or really anything. The key is anything on this line will re-render whenever anything changes. So if you make it an assignment like this variable equals this stuff, if count ever changes, this variable is going to get recreated, reassigned essentially. So that's nice for maybe if you have like a long thing you want to compute. Maybe you want to like loop over a bunch of users and filter them or something. That's nice for that. For templating, you just do it. You don't need to return JSX. Styling, that's pretty nice. You don't need to use like CSS modules or worry about that kind of stuff. Usually in React land, I don't know if you guys remember like BEM conventions, but that was something that existed for a while. Looping's easy. I mean, it's not that hard to React either, but I kind of like you don't have to use JavaScript to loop over HTML.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. There's like a language for composing your template, and then you use JavaScript for the script part, and then you use HTML for the HTML part. It's a pretty cool distinction. But yeah, this looks like it goes on a while, but I think that's the gist of it. But cool. Anyway, thanks everyone for being here. Let's wrap it up. Go have a good week.